Now at noon, I'll call this meeting to order and je déclare la séance ouverte.
Call this meeting to order.
Welcome to the 9th meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on COVID-19 pandemic. Je crois qu'on prend.
I believe that we agree to observe a moment of silence.
I understand that there's an agreement to observe a moment of silence in memory of Captain Jennifer Casey, a member of the Snowbirds team who died on Sunday in a crash in Kamloops. Okay. La réunion aujourd'hui aura lieu par vidéo.
Today's meeting is taking place by video conference. I would ask members to wait until I recognize them before they begin to speak. And when you are ready to speak, please turn on your mic. When you stop talking, please mute your mic.
Honorable members, that if you want to speak, one moment. As I'm telling you to do it, I'm not doing it myself, is to change to the right channel. I would like to remind the honorable members that if you want to speak in English, you should be on the English channel. And if you want to speak in French, you should be on the French channel. And should you wish to alternate between the two languages, you should change the channel to the language that you are speaking each time you switch languages. In addition, please direct your remarks through the chair and speak slowly and clearly all the time to help our interpreters. De plus, s'il vous plaît, veuillez.
Moreover, please direct your remarks through the chair and please speak slowly and clearly at all times in order to help our interpreters.
Finally, we strongly recommend that you use the headsets. I notice almost everyone has picked up a headset, and it's very much appreciated, not only by your fellow members of Parliament, but also by the interpreters. And now we'll go to ministerial announcements, and I understand that there are no ministerial announcements today. We'll now go to... one second, we're having a technical issue on this side. We'll go on to presenting petitions for a period of not exceeding 15 minutes. I would like to remind the members that any petition presented during a meeting of this special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions. Our first petition goes to Mr. Genius.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to be presenting two petitions today. The first deals with Bill C7, a piece of government legislation which seeks to remove many of the safeguards associated with the existing euthanasia regime. Petitioners are concerned about efforts to remove many of these safeguards. They note in particular the removal of the 10-day reflection period. They note that reflection period can already be waived by physicians in certain situations, but this legislation proposes to eliminate that reflection period entirely. The second petition deals with another piece of legislation, Bill S204, a bill proposed in the Senate which seeks to make it a criminal offense for someone to go abroad to receive an organ for which there was not consent. Petitioners are very supportive of this petition, and it's noted as well that World Health officials have actually praised China's organ transplant regime, despite problems we know of dealing with organ harvesting and trafficking. I commend these petitions to the consideration of members. Thank you.
Mr. Manley?
Oh, you were on mute, Mr. Speaker.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't hear my name called. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a petition today sent in by members of my constituency in Nanaimo Ladysmith, and it calls upon the House of Commons in Parliament assembled to commit to upholding the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action by immediately putting a halt to all existing and planned construction of the Coastal GasLink project on Wet'suwet'en territory, ordering the RCMP to dismantle their exclusion zone and stand down, to schedule nation-to-nation talks between the Wet'suwet'en Nation and the federal and provincial governments, something that's already happened, and I'm sure that the petitioners would be pleased that the government has taken that action, and to prioritize the real implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Thank you.
Point of order. Can't hear you, Mr. Speaker.
Can anyone hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. It's technology is not perfect. The next petition will be presented by Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An honor to present a petition. It was certified by the clerk. Petition number 431 relates to the ongoing crisis, the opioid crisis. The petitioners call on the House to declare this a public health emergency, to take all immediate steps that are necessary to address this crisis. I note that the number of deaths from the opioid crisis in Canada far exceed the number of deaths from COVID-19. Petitioners call on the government to declare this a public health emergency, to move expeditiously to assist moving in towards protecting this, the people who are victims, dealing with this issue as a public health crisis, not as a criminal matter, and to work towards decriminalization of drugs such that we can save lives in Canada due to the opioid crisis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now proceed to the questioning of ministers. The first question goes to Ms. Alisev. Ms. Alisev.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Over the weekend, we learned of a tragic accident during the CF Snowbirds Operation Inspiration Tour to salute Canadians for doing their part during this pandemic. On behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada, I would like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Captain Jennifer Casey and the entire military community on this profound loss. We also send our thoughts and strength for a full recovery to Captain Richard McDougall, who was seriously injured in the incident. Could the Prime Minister provide an update on the incident investigation?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member opposite for her question and her words. It is with heavy heart that we grieve the loss of a member of the Snowbirds team who've been flying across the country to lift up Canadians during these challenging times. Our thoughts are with the families of Captain Jennifer Casey, Captain Richard McDougall, and the entire Canadian Forces Snowbirds team during this difficult time. Our thoughts in particular are mourning Captain Casey, who was another brave Nova Scotian lost during these very, very difficult times for that province. We thank the emergency personnel in Kamloops who responded so quickly to this tragic incident. A flight safety team will investigate the incident, and until the investigation concludes, the CT-114's Tudor fleet will be on operational pause. Our hearts go out to everyone.
Ms. Alisev.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Canadian Security Establishment has warned that intellectual property that Canadian health organizations are developing associated with researching vaccines and treatments and tests for coronavirus are valuable targets for the Chinese Communist Party-backed hacking. Has the Prime Minister or any member of Cabinet been made aware of any cyber breaches?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we take extremely seriously the safety, security of Canadians and of our intellectual property. That's why the Canadian security establishment continues to do extraordinary work in keeping Canada and Canadians safe. We receive regular updates from the CSC and from all our intelligence agencies on what we can do and what we continue to do to ensure that Canada is protected.
Ms. Elizev.
Well, Mr. Chair, the Canadian Securities Establishment has indicated that there is a heightened risk and increased measures are needed to protect Canadian national security interests at this time. Could the Prime Minister let us know what additional measures the government is taking to heed these increased warnings and protect Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We have over the past years increased the resources available to the CSC because we know how important it is to constantly be remaining vigilant and protecting Canadian networks, Canadian institutions, and the safety and security of Canadians from cyber intrusion and cyber attacks. We continue to ensure that our national security agencies have the tools necessary to do what is needed to be done.
Ms. Elizev.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Canada is a member of international organizations like the WHO because we expect to receive accurate and timely information that enables us to make decisions on the actions we need to take to keep Canadians safe. But if the WHO doesn't validate and verify that information that they share with member states, it puts us all at risk. Over the weekend, the International Development Minister said that it's not the WHO's responsibility to question the information provided by China in this pandemic. Right from day one, Canada has made bad decisions based on bad information from the WHO. The crisis is not over. Is the government continuing to trust without verifying the information from the WHO?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians well know that this is a global crisis that is hitting locally in every country around the world, and we need strong global institutions to be able to counter this, and that is why we continue to support the work of the WHO. However, as we go through this, it is clear that there will need to be improvements to the WHO, to the international institutions that serve us, and Canada will be there, as we have been there, in asking questions and demanding answers.
La prochaine question sera posée par...
The next question will be asked by Mr. Sainte-Marie. Please go ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On the 11th of April, the House adopted a motion which asked the government to implement short-term support measures for SMEs to cover their fixed costs. What has the government done? Regarding fixed costs, we recognize that the biggest cost for many businesses is payroll, and so we do have the wage subsidy. We have also, Mr. Sainte-Marie, yes, payroll is important, but that's not a fixed cost. So once again, I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, what has the government done to help businesses with fixed costs pursuant to the motion adopted by the House? And I wouldn't mind if you took longer than I took to ask my question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, but I will try to be brief. We have implemented measures to help with commercial rent. This is an important and a significant cost for many businesses, and we're working closely with provinces to ensure that we offer support to businesses to help them with these fixed costs, including commercial rent. Mr. Sainte-Marie. Mr. Chair, the rent assistance program is not working. The CFIP is asking for this program to be overhauled significantly. For example, the requirement of having lost 70% of revenues is excessive and is going to leave many SMEs behind. And this program leaves behind SMEs where the owner does not have a mortgage, as well as chains. And when SMEs try to qualify for the program, they need the owner of the building to collaborate, and that's not always the case. According to the Quebec Retail Council, 40% of businesses that would be able to apply to this program say that the owner doesn't want to participate. Has the government evaluated the effectiveness of this program? What is the government going to do to make it truly accessible? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. From the very beginning, we have brought forward programs to help. And as we're watching the impact of these various situations, we are trying to close any gaps in the program and improve the programs. And we're continuing to review the program to see how we can strengthen and improve it. At the same time, we in the Liberal Party, we recognize areas of provincial jurisdiction, and we will work closely with provinces or the relevant jurisdiction in areas such as rent. So we will work closely with Quebec and the other provinces.
In terms of provincial jurisdiction, the Quebec's Minister of Finance, Éric Girard, does not agree with the Prime Minister, and he said the program was announced by the federal government and its administration is completely under the CMHC. This is not at all provincial. Chair, the Quebec Restaurant Organization surveys its members, and 2/3 said they are very or extremely concerned about paying their rent in coming weeks. In terms of rent support, according to this survey, at least 1 out of 4 restaurant owners will have a hard time signing up for this program. What is the Prime Minister going to do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We established programs to help small business workers, Canadians, families that are facing great challenges during this crisis. And this is why, as the situation evolves and as we understand where we need to make improvements, we are tweaking programs. We are looking at alternative mechanisms and small businesses. We're going to work with landlords as well. We know there's always more to do, and we're going to be there for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Mr. Sainte-Marie, a 30-second question or less, please. Well, SME fixed costs go beyond rents for many sectors, such as hotels, hair salons, and even zoos. What is the government going to do for fixed costs for SME aside from commercial rent support? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, in 30 seconds or less. We this morning announced an expansion of the $40,000 loan program for small businesses who were not eligible. Now, small businesses that have employees that are contractors or business owners that are sole proprietors will be able to have access to this $40,000 loan, and this will help them with fixed costs. Thank you.
Question goes to Mr. Julian. Mr. Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are suffering during this pandemic, but some very wealthy are profiting. During World War II, there were laws against profiteering, but this government seems to be providing incentives for profiteering. First, we talk about the corporate bailout program LEAF, which is open to companies that use tax havens, which is over 90% of Canada's largest publicly traded companies. Why didn't this government shut the door to LEAF to all companies that use tax havens?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have increased substantially the resources available to Revenue Canada to go after tax avoidance and tax evasion in the billions of dollars, and we will continue to do exactly that. We have no patience for those who don't pay their fair share of taxes as a government or as a country. At the same time, we are needing to make sure that we are supporting workers across the country, whether they work for large companies or not. Perhaps the NDP is willing to put aside the workers, the tens of thousands of workers in Canada's 90% of the largest companies. We are not. We will continue to be there for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, not a single company listed in the Panama Papers, no companies listed in the Paradise Papers, not a single company involved in the Isle of Man scam have ever been charged, let alone convicted, of tax evasion. They can all get the Prime Minister's corporate bailout. Now, Denmark and France and other countries have banned tax haven companies from getting bailouts. Why hasn't this government done the same?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have taken very seriously the responsibility of cracking down on tax avoidance and tax evasion and ensuring everyone pays their fair share. But if the NDP really wants to continue on this approach, they should start naming companies that they feel should not be eligible and explain to their workers why they don't qualify for the help that other Canadians get. We need to work first and foremost on supporting workers, but if the NDP wants to start listing companies whose workers shouldn't be helped, please go ahead.
Other countries have done it, and the Prime Minister, with respect, should be doing the same thing. Now, there's the big banks as well. In the last economic crisis, the Harper government gave over $69 billion in largesse, as the banks racked over $27 billion in profit over the same period. Now, this government is going even further, approving up to $150 billion in support to Canada's big banks. The banks can and do impose penalties, fees, and interest on any deferrals they approve, and they're benefiting from near zero Bank of Canada rates. The government has tools to cut the banks' profiteering. Why don't they use them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, we see the NDP being long on rhetoric and attacks, but short on specifics. They will not name the companies that they don't think employees should be getting benefits like other Canadians because of the companies they work for. And I'm still waiting for the NDP to start naming companies who shouldn't receive the leaf. On the other side, we will continue to work with the banks who have made strong measures to support Canadians and will be doing more in the coming months. We know we need to work together to get through this, and that businesses large and small are part of the solution in this country. We will keep working with them for the benefit of all Canadians.
Mr. Julian.
Mr. Speaker, they haven't used a single tool, and people should come before profiteering. It's time the Prime Minister understood this. Now, Amazon is owned by the world's richest man who's made an estimated $30 billion off the backs of Amazon workers during this pandemic. Amazon has announced it's cutting wages at the end of this month. And Amazon's on the dirty dozen list of most dangerous employers. But instead of defending workers, this government is helping Amazon with public money. This government has given Amazon a sweetheart contract to take over from our post office and our federal emergency warehouses. Why support Amazon's profiteering with public funds?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know how important it is to get personal protective equipment out to places across the country that need it quickly and urgently, and that is why we're working with Amazon Canada as a distribution space. But there's a company, perhaps the NDP is suggesting that Amazon Canada employees shouldn't be receiving benefits from the government. We think that employees, regardless of the companies they work for, large or small, should be getting the help that they need, and we're ensuring that the help that goes to companies goes directly to employees. Those are the things with the wage subsidy and others that we are focused on to make sure that Canada can come back strong, both health-wise and economy-wise, once this is through.
The next question is for Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes, thank you very much, Chair. The PBO has said that he is concerned that the government hasn't presented a plan, a budgetary plan. Will this government table an economic update or a budget by the end of June or not? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Minister then?
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, thank you very much for this question. Of course, it's very important to be transparent with Canadians. We explained all our measures and the costs of them approximately, and we're going to continue with our approach of being transparent. And when the situation is more stable, we will be able to explain the future of our budgetary situation more clearly, Mr. Reyes. I also hope that that deciding who would answer my question wasn't taken account in my time. And if you can't table a full budget, what do you plan to do? Can you give us an economic update? The Honourable Minister. As I said, we know that it's very important to be transparent, and that is why we provided information to the Parliamentary Committee, and we are going to continue with our approach. And when we have an economic situation that is more stable, Mr. Reyes, I'm going to ask a simple question. Will you table an economic update by the end of June? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Chair, when the economic situation will be more stable, we will have more to say. Mr. Reyes. The government is announcing billions in spending every day with no accountability. Can the PM tell us when he'll be able to return to the House in small groups, respecting health guidelines, to exercise our democracy properly? The Honourable Minister.
Le leader du parti du.
Can the government House leader? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. If I can interrupt you once again. For those who are asking questions, we ensure that all the time is properly taken into account. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. We show that we've been able to do different things. There's a fundamental role that the Parliament plays that has to be balanced with public health concerns. Mr. Reyes. I'd like to point out to the government House leader and the government that there are lockdowns everywhere and there are almost no exceptions. So how come our House cannot sit while respecting public health guidelines? The Honourable Minister. I hope my colleague isn't saying that we should bring back more than 300 members to the House. We're searching for a balance, and we are listening to the reactions of the various parties. The Parliament is able to play its role. Mr. Reyes, I said that we would have a very small group of members that would return to the House, so that doesn't make sense to talk about 338 members. Well, in terms of the budget, we know that students have started to receive the emergency benefit that was retroactive, and some of them may be working full-time after. Will they still be able to receive the benefit? The Honourable Minister.
Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, we have put a limit on the earnings that a student can earn, which is the exact same as the CERB of $1,000. And of course, are encouraging students to work as much as they can. And hopefully that will allow them to work full time and not avail themselves of the CESB. The CESB is there as a backstop for students who can't work or earn more than $1,000 a month.
Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes, I'll repeat my question quite simply. People who have been receiving CERB for 3 weeks, and if they get a full-time job, if they earn more than $1,000 a month, will they have to pay back the money, the $1,250 they receive weekly? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every 4 weeks, students will have to attest to the fact if they will be earning more than $1,000 in the upcoming period. If they are, then they are not eligible for the CESB.
Monsieur le Président,
Chair, the Conservatives have required, sorry, inaudible for the interpreter, too many people talking at once. The Conservatives required students be paired with available jobs before receiving financial aid. How come this hasn't been done yet? The Honourable Minister, in 15 seconds or less.
We are doing just that through our job bank. Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll go on to the next question. We'll go to Mr. Bazan. Mr. Bazan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's indeed a pleasure to be with everyone today. I too want to offer my condolences along with everyone else in the House to the family, to the friends, and particularly the colleagues in the Royal Canadian Air Force of Captain Jen Casey, who perished in the snowbird accident this weekend, and extend that to the entire Canadian Armed Forces family. And I also want to wish a speedy recovery to Captain Richard McDougall. Now, over the last couple of days, there's been some aviation experts who are calling for the permanent grounding of the 1960s vintage snowbird fleet of CT-114 Tudors. Now, the Prime Minister did allude to the fact that the snowbirds are going to be grounded during the investigation. If the investigation proves that this was mechanical failure, will the government be looking at grounding the fleet permanently?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for his question, and also I want to join him in expressing our very sincere condolences to the Air Force officer who was lost, and our very sincere wishes for speedy recovery for the injured captain. The safety of our women and men in uniform is our top priority, and a Royal Canadian Air Force Flight Safety Team is currently in British Columbia investigating the accident. And as the Prime Minister indicated, the Tudor fleet has been placed on an operational pause, and of course, operational inspiration has been delayed indefinitely as the investigation is ongoing. I believe it's inappropriate to speculate or provide information at this time, but we will be monitoring that investigation and its results and advice very carefully.
Mr. Bazan.
Thank you. Now, in the previous Conservative government, we actually launched the process of replacing the Tudors back in 2012. Now, the Trudeau government actually stopped that in 2018. So why did the government stop the replacement program for the Tudors, for our snowbirds?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, I will simply reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that the safety of our men and women in uniform is a top priority. And as there is an investigation ongoing, we have temporarily paused the use of the Tudor fleet, and the investigation will provide us with information. I'm not going to speculate or provide any additional information at that time, but we will monitor very carefully the results of that investigation and act as required.
Mr. Bazan.
Well, Minister Blair, I was just asking for when we're going to actually get around to replacing this fleet and why you paused it in 2018 and have the snowbirds fly till 2030. But while we're talking about jets for the Royal Canadian Air Force, let's talk about the CF-18 replacement program, which has been delayed by the Liberals on numerous occasions, with the most recent delays happening in February this year, and then again earlier this month of May, pushing the deadline now till July 31st. So my question to the government is, this last delay, was it related to the COVID-19 circumstances? Was it requested by the competitors, or is it being requested by the government because of lack of departmental staff to actually process the bids?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to assure the member opposite that the replacement of the air fleet is a top priority for the government. We are working diligently towards making the best determination on the best equipment for our members, and that process will proceed as has it been indicated, and we remain committed to ensuring that our people have the best tools and the safest tools that they need to do their job of keeping Canadians safe.
Okay,
Mr. Bazan.
Well, that was a non-answer and doesn't shed any light at all on what we're talking about with the CF-18 replacement. And now, in my next couple of questions, I want to switch it to force protection, with media reporting that there are a number of Canadian Armed Forces members who are serving on the front line in long-term care facilities that have contracted COVID-19. I would like to know, what is the total number of infections now in the Canadian Armed Forces? How many of those are related to serving in long-term care facilities? And what is the government doing to continue with force protection of those that are serving during this pandemic?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, I thank the member for this important question, because in response to requests for assistance from the Quebec and Ontario government, we have provided over 1,400 personnel to 25 long-term care facilities in Quebec and 275 members committed to 5 facilities in Ontario. As of May 15th, 5 Canadian Armed Forces members supporting these facilities have tested positive for COVID-19, and we were prepared to provide regular updates on a weekly basis. All of the CAF personnel in these facilities are thoroughly trained, provided with appropriate personal protection, and I take the opportunity to thank them for their dedication and commitment.
The next question goes to Ms. Stubbs. Ms. Stubbs.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. On April 13th and again on May 4th, the Ontario Petroleum Institute wrote the Finance Minister asking for federal assistance for Ontario's orphan wells. That's in line with what has been offered to other provinces. On April 17th, the Prime Minister announced $1.7 billion for orphan wells in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, but there are 1,500 inactive wells in Manitoba and 27,000 orphaned and inactive wells in Ontario. Will the Liberals provide the same opportunity to oil services companies in Ontario and Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister.
I'd like to thank the member for her important question, and it gives me an opportunity to point out how important our $1.7 billion for cleaning up the orphan wells has been. This is a program which we have already seen is creating great jobs for workers in the oil and gas sector in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, and in BC. These are the parts of the country that have been the most affected, and that's why we've targeted our support there.
We'll go back to Ms. Stubbs. Ms. Stubbs.
Well, the OPI proposed an Ontario orphan well reclamation program to create jobs, support the economy, and to remediate thousands of wells in their province. So on what date will the minister at least actually respond to the OPI?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you again for the question. And let me just say, I am sure the member opposite, who is a member for Alberta, is not in any way suggesting that any of the funds that we have dedicated to orphan well cleanup should be taken away from Alberta and moved to any other part of the country.
Ms. Stubbs.
I can assure the minister that what I believe is that support should be given to all provinces to dealing with the issue of orphan wells. On March 17th, of course, the finance minister said oil and gas support was coming in, quote, hours or days. And that was 55 days ago. So on April 28th, I asked for an update and the minister said it would be, quote, rolled out as quickly as possible. We must have different definitions of quick. Well, it's 21 days later and still nothing. So on what date will the BDC loans for small and medium oil and gas operators and the Canada Development Investment Corporation loans for larger bridge financing actually be available?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member opposite must have a different definition than the oil and gas sector does for what constitutes real and meaningful support that has reassured the industry, support that has reassured the oil sector. Let me talk about the Calgary Chamber of Commerce and its reaction to the LEAF financing support. We welcome the federal government's action to increase access to liquidity and capital. These are important steps. They've increased confidence in the industry, and that's the right thing to do.
Ms. Stubbs.
But the announcement doesn't actually equate to support being actually available to the industry. So on what date will it actually be available?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the industry understands very well that this is significant support, and the support absolutely is coming.
Ms. Stubbs.
Well, the minister says the right things, but you know what? Death by delay is a tactic of anti-energy activists, and it sure is an effective way to phase out the industry, isn't it? So talking about nice words, but failure to deliver and letting people down, my constituents are frustrated. They're spending hours, days, and even weeks trying to reach Service Canada, and they're being cut off. They're getting busy signals. They're often unable to access the system at all. Giving an example, after finally reaching an agent, Mike from Vermilion was told the agent was not the, quote, proper level, couldn't help him, and that he would be escalated for a call back. That never happened. So I acknowledge that since the pandemic, Service Canada is overloaded, but this was already a problem pre-COVID-19. So how will the minister fix it and make sure Canadians actually get the support they need?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Our priority has always been, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, to ensure that Canadians have access to their benefits through Service Canada. We have redeployed over 3,000 staff members to provide services in EI and the CERB to Canadians. We've also ensured that we've set up a 1,500 agent call center to respond very quickly to any Canadian who has applied to the CERB and who has questions. Our focus will remain on making sure that we continue to provide the benefits to Canadians through Service Canada.
Ms. Stubbs, 25 seconds left, so a 10-second question if possible, and then we'll see about an answer.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Quick question, and should be a clear answer. What will the Liberals do to support Keystone XL, depending on the outcome of the U.S. presidential election?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has long been clear in its support for Keystone XL. In fact, in 2013, before we were in government, our future Prime Minister traveled to Washington to make very clear our support for that important pipeline.
The next question goes to Ms. Vecchio. Ms. Vecchio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And last week it was reported that many single parents, mostly women, are struggling. Due to the pandemic, they're not receiving their support payments from their former spouses. Many of the payers have been impacted due to a loss of job. What is the government doing to ensure that single parents who rely on these types of supports are getting their funds?
The Honourable Minister.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that single parents, particularly single women, are struggling, and that's why we've put in place a number of measures, including the GST credit and the augmented CCB payment. We're looking to see how much more we can do, but I can assure the member that we too are very concerned about this vulnerable population.
Ms. Vecchio.
Thank you very much. And the government provided the first round of funding for the shelters through delivery agents. I'm just asking to the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, has this money actually flowed into the bank accounts of these shelters?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. We made sure that we, very early in the pandemic, flowed that money to all the community entities, and an additional $50 million directly to women's shelters.
We'll go back to
that has enabled.
Exactly, and that was specifically my question. Have these women's shelters received the money, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
They have, in the sense that that money was distributed very quickly through us, and to make sure that they're able to respond very quickly to COVID-19.
Ms. Vecchio, I just want to remind the honourable members to place their questions through the chair and not directly to the person.
Perfect.
They're asking the answer for. Please continue, Ms. Vecchio.
Will do, and thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We know that many municipalities and sexual assault centers have been there to help women who are fleeing and are at risk. Many of these organizations do not get money, especially some of the sexually assault centers. What is the federal government doing to help these municipalities and these organizations who are using their funds and these operating expenses to fill these voids that the government have not addressed?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure my colleague that to date, over 500 sexual assault centers and women's shelters have received funding to respond to the challenges that COVID brings. There's an additional $10 million to be rolled out to those organizations that have not yet received funding. That funding will flow as early June.
Excellent.
Ms. Vecchio.
How many seconds left, or how many minutes left, Mr.?
We have 2 minutes and 41 seconds. And I just want to remind you, I'll take this opportunity. When I'm speaking, usually the clock is stopped so that you don't have to worry about being eaten into your time. And I just want to remind all the members that when they're either asking a question or answering a question, please talk at a reasonable pace. The interpreters are working hard in the background, and we don't see them, but we want to make sure that their health remains intact during this crisis. Ms. Vecchio, 2 minutes and 41 seconds.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the reminder. I do get excited about my questions. So going on to last week, there are organizations from across Canada that are providing services to young women and girls who are vulnerable of sexual exploitation and human trafficking. And they're calling on this government for support. Just in September of 2019, the Minister for Public Safety announced $75 million to support anti-trafficking initiatives. Yet agencies like the London Abused Women's Centre, Le Clés, and Reset are closing their trafficking programs this week. I'm going to just ask, very simple, where is the money, and why are we not supporting these vulnerable women and girls at this incredible, difficult time?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank every single individual on the front lines of supports for survivors of gender-based violence, be it trafficking, sex work, or other forms of hardship that affect too many women in this country. We've already invested over $250 million to support these agencies pre-COVID. We've rolled out tens of millions of dollars to further support them. We have a human trafficking strategy, as my colleague suggested, with $10 million in additional supports coming to ensure that every organization that's providing this critical work is supported. And of course, we do this in partnership with provinces and territories.
Ms. Vecchio.
Thanks very much. But like I said, we are closing the programs at the end of the week. There are 9 organizations, including the London Abused Women's Centre, who have come together saying there was $75 million announced. Where's the money?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have rolled out tens of millions of dollars to the front lines, and we are committed to ensuring that every organization providing critical support is able to keep its doors open and its staff paid, and we are working very closely with provinces on this.
Fair enough, but they're closing this Friday. So as of this Friday, any of these vulnerable young women and girls who are looking for supports do not have them. So what happens after Friday?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is in regular conversation with those on the front lines of supports for survivors and victims of gender-based violence. We have rolled out more funds than any other government before, and we are committed to ensuring their success. We've already rolled out funds, and come early June, new funds will flow to organizations that are eligible for further supports.
The next question goes to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, this is an ongoing issue that is impacting small businesses all over my riding. And I know small businesses from coast to coast to coast in our great country. 2 weeks ago, I asked the minister about businesses that continue to fall through the cracks, businesses that are not eligible for supports for the simple fact that they've operated their business out of a personal bank account rather than having opened up a business bank account. They qualify in every other way except for the bank account that they operate from. Now, when I asked the minister a couple of weeks ago, it was indicated that help would be coming, and yet we have not seen it. So where is the help for those businesses that are struggling and at risk of closing down permanently?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, through you, I want to thank the honourable member for his question. As you know, throughout COVID-19, we have listened to small businesses and entrepreneurs across the country. Today, we announced the expansion to the eligibility criteria for CEBA to include many owner-operated small businesses, and we will continue to work on potential solutions to help business owners and entrepreneurs who operate through their personal bank account or have yet to file a tax return, such as newly created businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, applicants to that program in Atlantic Canada are to receive help through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. They're required to attest that they've applied to other government programs before being deemed eligible for support. So let's think of what that means. This means that they are required to have applied for a program even if they know that they do not qualify, even if they've been told by their accountant or their lawyer that they do not qualify. They're being told that they must attest to having applied for one of these other programs. So this means that if they're applying for a program like CERB or CEBA or the wage subsidy, even if they know they're not eligible. So is it the government's intention to have small business owners apply for programs they know they're not eligible for in order to receive support from Canada's regional development agencies like ACOA?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to my colleague for this very important question, because what businesses across Atlantic Canada are being told is they have access to wage subsidy, they have access to the CEBA account. As my colleague just mentioned, it was also further expanded today, but they also have access to ACOA. And we know that ACOA is trusted by people in Atlantic Canada. It is a very well-renowned federal agency that is there to support economic development and also stabilizing businesses as they're going through this very difficult and anxious time. And therefore, it would be a pleasure if my colleague has specific examples to work on, that we work together to make sure that businesses have access to the Regional Relief Fund, because this is the intent of the government. We've got your back, and that's what we're telling businesses.
The Honourable Mr. Moore.
Well, I thank the minister for her answer, but this gets to the very question that's being asked of businesses before they apply. They have to attest that they've applied for one of these other programs in order to be eligible. So I would be happy to take the minister up on the offer to help out with specific cases, but there's many cases across our country where business owners have received advice from the professionals that they are not eligible for one of these other programs, and that cannot be a criteria. If we want to help these businesses, it cannot be a criteria for programming under a COA that they have to have applied for another program to which they are not eligible. So will the minister commit to clarifying this so that a business isn't being asked to do something they know they ought not to do?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague knows, we've expanded massively the social safety net, including the safety net for businesses. And while we were expanding it, we didn't want businesses to fall through the cracks. So if they have access to the wage subsidy, great. And we have now the wage subsidy until the end of summer. If they have access to the CEBA account, the $40,000 loan, perfect. And we've just also increased the eligibility of the CEBA account. If that's not the case, well, I really hope that they come and see ACOA because we'll be there to help. And also, if they have already access to the CEBA account.
The next question goes to Mr. Barcelou Duval. The floor is yours. Are you on mute, Mr. Barcelou Duval? Is there a technical issue? Thank you very much, Chair. I was on mute. Chair, after Air Canada announced that it was laying off 20,000 people over the weekend, the Prime Minister said that he was going to work closely with companies like Air Canada to see what more he could do to help them. Before giving more money to the airlines, will the Prime Minister at least make sure that they pay back the thousands of customers whose money they grabbed? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. As you know, our government established measures to help the airline industry. Of course, I'm talking about the wage subsidy program, and many airlines have called on this program, including Air Canada. And secondly, there's a program to offer loans to large corporations. This program was just established, and we're going to see how it progresses in coming days. Mr. Barcelou Duval. The question was to know whether he was going to require the refund of thousands of companies, rather customers who lost their money. The Honourable Minister. Chair, I understand the frustration of people who were not refunded, but this industry is going through very tough times right now. Mr. Barcelou Duval. Chair, there is a point of order. One moment, please.
Could you ask the member to actually switch over to the French channel when he speaks, s'il vous plaît?
Okay. Which one, the minister or the member?
The member, Xavier.
Okay. Monsieur Barcelou.
Mr. Barcelou Duval, I was on the English channel.
And then we'll go back. Mr. Barcelou Duval, est-ce que vous pourriez parler?
Mr. Barcelou Duval, could you please speak on the French channel? Okay, that is done. Wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, saying that I've been on the French channel since the beginning. I didn't hear the last question.
Peut-être on va arrêter l'horloge.
Perhaps we'll stop the clock because there's a technical issue. Mr. Barcelou Duval, could you repeat your last question? Yes, the question was to know whether after Air Canada announced the layoffs of 20,000 people, can the minister ensure, since the Prime Minister said he would work to help Air Canada, can the minister ensure at least that people whose flights were cancelled would be refunded? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. As I've just answered, I understand the frustration of people who would have wanted to be refunded rather than receiving a flight credit, but we have to understand now that airlines are experiencing very tough times right now because they've lost 95% of their revenues. Mr. Barcelou Duval. One of the reasons Air Canada cited for laying off 20,000 people was that it had to preserve its cash flow. According to its March 31st financial statements, Air Canada was sitting on $6 billion in cash. Even if it lost $20 million a day, the company would have enough to cover its needs for almost a year. Of this $6 billion, $2.6 billion belongs to its customers who have often lost their jobs and who are far from having a year's worth of cash in hand. I'd like to understand why the Liberal government gave $8 million more to this company without even requiring it to refund its customers. The Honourable Minister. Chair, as you know, we established programs to help Canadian companies, including the wage subsidy, and there's also a program for large corporations to have credit. As you know, 95% of these companies' revenues have disappeared because people aren't flying. But these companies still have great expenses and fixed costs because there are other expenses, capital expenses that they have to pay every month, and they all need assistance. Mr. Brosseau-Duval. Chair, I would like the Minister of Transport to explain to me why, throughout Europe and the United States, airlines have to refund people for cancelled flights, but not in Canada. The Honourable Minister. Chair, I won't comment on measures that were taken by other countries, but I can say that here in Canada, we understand full well the situation, and we have the health of our airlines at mind. We understand the frustration of people who would have liked to have had a refund. Mr. Brosseau-Duval. According to the Civil Code and the Consumer Protection Act, airline customers should be refunded for cancelled flights. Why are the Canadian Transportation Agency and the Minister of Transport inviting airlines to break Quebec laws? The Honourable Minister. Chair, as you know, the Minister of Transport of Canada is an independent agency that makes its own decisions, and it's a quasi-judicial body, and I won't speak on its behalf. Mr. Brosseau-Duval. Also, the question was for the Minister. Does he think this is a proper practice? Because these customers did not receive service, and this does not respect Quebec law. The Honourable Minister. I won't comment on a decision or opinion that was issued by the Ministry of Transport. 15-second question, 50-second answer. Once again, my question is for the Minister of Transport. I would like to ask him the same question. The Honourable Minister. My priority as Minister of Transport is the health of our airlines, so they'll be able to rebound once COVID-19 is over. We're going to continue now with Mr. Serret. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share my time today with the member for Cape Breton-Canso. I'm going to benefit from this opportunity today to thank frontline workers and all essential workers for their hard work and deep commitment during this time. So bravo to all these workers. Since I was elected in 2015, I've listened to electors' needs for better access to high-speed internet and cell phones in my riding of Nickel Belt and in Northern Ontario. I have met with local organizations, mayors, councillors, and private high-speed internet providers to find solutions. More than ever, internet is an essential tool, whether it's for frontline workers, essential sectors, people working from home, students, homeschooling as well. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development describe our government's recent plan and state what measures were announced in Budget 2019 for high-speed internet access and cell phone service for all Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. With the leadership of members like my honourable colleague, we established a plan to give all Canadians access to high-speed internet that is reliable and affordable. And this plan is working.
Further urgency to our work To Canadians in Nickel Belt across rural communities, we have a plan to get you connected, and we've got your back. We're well underway to connecting 1 million households to high-speed internet, which was not part of the plan until we formed government in 2015. Our new program, the Universal Broadband Fund, will connect hundreds of thousands of more Canadians to high-speed internet, and we will be working with all willing partners to connect as many Canadians to high-speed internet as quickly as possible.
The next question goes to Mr. Kellaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to ask a question to our government in such an historic manner. Mr. Chair, after weeks of working with local industry representatives in the fishery and hearing their concerns, I was very proud to hear the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans announce nearly $500 million to support the fishing sector. With the announcement of the new fish harvester benefit and the new fish harvester grant, many license holders will now be able to access similar supports to other small and medium-sized businesses across the country. Further, by committing to making changes to employment insurance benefits for harvesters and chairpersons, we've helped to reduce the stress of such uncertainty caused by the industry by this pandemic. Mr. Chair, this announcement is very commendable. However, there's always more to be done. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask the question to the Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans to outline for the House how these measures will support fish harvesters and chairpersons during this pandemic.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Cape Breton Canso for his many texts, phone calls, emails. He represents his area very well and the fishers in that area. A lot of what he fed to us and our department was able to form part of what we announced last week, so I want to thank him for his advocacy. Mr. Speaker, in rural coastal communities, the fishery is sometimes the only thing that we have for our economic drivers, so that's why it was so important for us to support our harvesters. Last week, we announced close to $500 million with money going to the fish harvester benefit, which will allow harvesters and shareholders to collect $847 a week for up to 12 weeks in this very difficult time. We also announced the fish harvester grant, which is a $10,000 grant to harvesters who will be able to help with their fixed costs. And Mr. Speaker, making the change to on the employment insurance is going to be a huge win for our fishers. This is something that they're going to be able to base their EI claims on last year's season, and that's going to be extremely helpful because this year we're not really sure what's going to happen. We will continue to work with our harvesters, with their industry partners in order to make sure that we're addressing their needs as we go forward. We know that these are very challenging times, and we will make sure we are there for our fishing sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, like so many of my colleagues before me, I would like to express my personal condolences to the loved ones of Captain Jennifer Casey. This is from the NDP, my riding of North Island Powell River, and of course, specifically from the 19 Wing Comox, who I have the great honor to represent. The Canadian Royal Air Force is a small family, and I know this has hit everyone so badly. My prayers are also, of course, with Captain McDougall and his loved ones as he faces the challenges for his recovery. Madam Chair, my riding of North Island Powell River has a significant and diverse group of small businesses that serve the communities very well. COVID-19 has hit them very hard, and these businesses are working to keep their heads above water during this very trying time. Money for the regional economic development agencies and community futures was announced weeks ago as a means to support these types of businesses who can't access other COVID-19 emergency funds. But the money is still yet to be seen. Small businesses in my riding are lining up for these supports. They are ready to get to work, and every day that they have to wait, they are closer to losing everything that they have worked so hard to build. When are they finally going to get the help that they so desperately deserve and need?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, dear colleague. It's a pleasure to answer a question about that because we announced last Wednesday the launch of the new program. So in direct response to her question, the money is available now. So obviously, if they can't access the wage subsidy, if they don't have access to the new version of the CEBA account, which was announced today, please, let's make sure that they have access to the Regional Development Agency, including, of course, in Western Canada, the Western Economic Diversification Agency, and the different community futures organizations, which are also called the CFDCs. So if my colleague has a clear example in mind, please feel free to connect with me, and we'll make sure that we can find solutions. Thank you.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Well, I certainly will be contacting the minister, as I know in my riding that there are wait lists and the money is still not there. Now I'd like to move to the important issue of seniors. The government announced a much needed top up for seniors in receipt of GIS and OAS, which the member of Hamilton Mountain has fought so hard for. And I encourage the government to follow his recommendations to maintain this in the future to prevent the growing poverty in the senior populations across Canada. The top-up that was announced was said to be tax-free, but OAS is taxable under the Old Age Security Act. How does the minister plan on delivering this tax-free, and can she explain as well when this money will be coming to the seniors who need it so desperately?
The honourable minister.
Thank you very much for the question. I just want to assure the member that we are totally committed to deliver for seniors. We have provided financial support to seniors sooner through the GST credit top-up, and now an additional tax-free payment to those recipients of OAS and GIS. This provides support for seniors of all ages that is comparable for many and is greater for the most vulnerable. This year, we are investing over twice as much on financial assistance for seniors as we committed to in our platform. Seniors need our help, and we took action sooner and delivered.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I will let the minister know that seniors in rural remote communities have been waiting months for this little bit of funding and have had no extra additions for services or support for them. The next subject that I want to talk about today is the concerns around the Canadian border. I appreciate the 30-day extension that we have had announced today, but communities in my riding, rural and remote communities, have specific challenges and specific vulnerabilities that are challenging because of their limited health resources. In my riding, we saw an outbreak in one of our smaller communities that is accessible by ferry. The chief and council and the mayor and council were amazing and worked very hard during that time. Unfortunately, we did lose an elder to COVID-19. I'm just wondering if the minister could inform us all how rural, small communities are being included in my riding and across Canada to address the issue of changing border crossing abilities, because they are more vulnerable to COVID-19 and an outbreak in their communities can be absolutely devastating. Thank you.
The honourable minister.
Well, I would like to thank the member opposite for her very important question. It gives me an opportunity to underscore what the Prime Minister announced earlier today, which is that our government has now agreed with our American partners to roll over for another 30 days the restrictions on non-essential travel between Canada and the United States. The member is quite right that for ridings like hers, these restrictions are particularly important. We've worked very closely with the provinces on the border. The Premier of British Columbia was very clear that the epidemiological situation in BC, in his view, meant that we needed to maintain those restrictions in place. And I'm very glad that, again, working cooperatively and collaboratively with the US, we have been able to do that.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail Eagle Creek, Ms. Block.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Contracts normally lay out the expectations of the buyer and commitments by the seller. Given the number of contracts the government has signed for PPE, through you, Madam Chair, what is the total amount of PPE supplies Minister Anand expected to have received to date based on these contracts?
The honourable minister.
Well, thank you,
Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for opposite for the question. As she knows, our government has been working through a whole government approach to ensure that we can acquire personal protective equipment for all frontline workers, medical workers. We've been working very closely with our counterparts at the provincial and territorial level to ensure that we understand the demand and to make sure that we have appropriate orders in place. In addition, we've been working, as you know, on a domestic front to ensure the ability to produce PPE going into the future.
Thank you. Stories about suitcases of cash and supplies being diverted are appearing in media around the world. How many of the government's orders for PPE have gone missing?
A brief answer from the Minister.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, as we know, that supply chain is extremely fragile in terms of acquiring PPE around the world. Canada, like many other countries, has struggled, but we have been working very diligently, as you know, on the ground in many countries as well here to ensure the safety of the supply.
So I'll take that to mean that they have no idea. Over 80% of the N95 masks received have not met the standard of an N95 mask. What are the names of the suppliers and manufacturers who provided Canada with the 8 million substandard N95, KN95 masks?
The Honourable Minister of Health, a brief answer, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As the member opposite knows, we would never allow defective N95 masks to be used by frontline workers. That's why all of the masks that we receive here.
That's not what I asked, Madam Chair. I asked, what is the name?
The honourable member,
suppliers and manufacturers.
The honourable member will have to allow the minister to respond in the appropriate amount of time that she had asked the question. And if she has another question, she can then ask that question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The honourable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is it for me, Minister? Time for the minister's answer. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Listen, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for and I thank the member for the question. As the member knows, it's extremely important that the equipment that we procure overseas meets the quality and standards that will, in fact, protect the frontline healthcare workers to which it's destined, and to ensure that we complete full testing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the total value of the contracts to these suppliers and manufacturers of the substandard N95 masks?
Brief answer, the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is very important to understand that this is an extremely difficult procurement situation. Canada has been working together, as I said, collaboratively with our provinces and territories to ensure that we can acquire PPE that is so desperately needed by our frontline workers.
So I'll try another question. To Minister Anand, what mechanism is in the contracts for recouping Canadians' money?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I don't assume that the member means to imply that we can put a price on the safety of frontline workers. I know she understands just how tight this supply chain is and just how difficult it is across the world as countries compete for PPE that is very hard to procure. And she, I'm sure, understands the value of protecting our frontline healthcare workers to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I absolutely understand that, which is why I'm asking questions about substandard masks and what sort of mechanisms have been put into these contracts to ensure that that we have the funds available to procure masks in other places. With the government prepaying for PPE to suppliers, mostly with Chinese manufacturing, what guarantee does the government have that we will actually receive the PPE at all?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as the member knows, we've been working very closely with a number of partners, including Ambassador Barton, to ensure that we have a strong supply chain coming out of China, but also out of many other countries. It is important for the member opposite to know that we will stop at nothing to protect our frontline healthcare workers. That's what they deserve, given the enormous sacrifices they're making for all of us.
There's only 13 seconds left, Ms. Block.
Okay, at committee on Friday, the Deputy Minister for PSPC indicated the role of Deloitte in Canada was number one, reporting, and number two, vetting potential suppliers. Can Minister Anand tell us if Deloitte vetted the supplier of the 8 million substandard masks sold in Canada?
There's no more time left, but I'll allow the minister to respond quickly.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We're working with a number of partners, private sector and otherwise, to ensure that we can get what we need to protect our frontline healthcare workers, and in fact, that the materials we acquire meet the strong standards to protect their health and safety.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse des Etchemins-Lévis.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The honourable member for Bellechasse. Thank you, Madam Chair. People who are being left behind in my riding are people who are doing telework or children who are being homeschooled, people who are living in the regions. Because currently in these areas, there is a lack of good quality high-speed internet services. My question for the government, well, they announced that they were going to invest that money in budget 2019. What are they waiting for? They're helping all sorts of other sectors, but in my riding, people don't have access to this essential service.
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister? Yes, Chair. I'd like to thank the colleague for his question. We presented a program for high-speed internet, 1.6 billion, that will help and support all communities across Canada, notably in the regions. I understand this is a very serious situation. We are going to continue to work hard every day to solve this. My question, Mr. Blaney. Thank you. My question is quite simple. Are you willing to accelerate investment? The money was announced, but we haven't seen this since 2019. Are you committing today to quickly launch the universal internet program for regions so that all Canadians can have access to high-speed internet that is contemporary? I'd like to remind the member to address his question through the chair and not directly to the minister. The Honourable Minister. Thank you once again for the question. Our priority is, in terms of high-speed internet, is that it's not a luxury. It's absolutely essential. That is why we presented our program, Connect to Innovate, across Canada, notably in Quebec regions. We are putting forth a broadband program that will help as well. Mr. Blaney. Unfortunately, this program was criticized by the Auditor General. We don't have an answer today, even though we're in the midst of a pandemic. This is an essential service and there's no response received. Other people are saying that they're earning their living honestly and that they respect the law, but their customers aren't always. We have the best possible systems to control arms in Canada, but now these people are considered criminals. Can the Minister of Public Safety tell us that if I add certain things to a Formula One car that's not a Formula One car, does it make it one? No. So these are rather random and aesthetic changes you're making to gun laws in Canada. The Honourable Minister.
Very much for his question, and I want to be very clear. The weapons that we have prohibited are weapons that were not designed for any hunting or sporting purposes. We have very specifically identified the makes, models, and variants, which will now be prohibited. And overwhelmingly, I think there is a consensus among Canadians that these weapons have no place in a civil society, and that's why they are prohibited.
The Honourable Member. A gun that is used by a sportsman or for a hunter is considered illegal, and this is going to cost hundreds of millions unnecessarily, whereas we should attack real issues with street gangs. My question now is for the Minister of Heritage. In terms of the initiative that intends to fight fake information that is being spread about COVID-19, well, how come the government decides what Canadians should hear or not hear. Is this initiative to control freedom of expression? And if so, is the minister willing to withdraw its democracy initiative, the Honourable Minister? Chair, for our government, the freedom of expression is absolutely fundamental. And that is why our government continues to invest to support it, whether it's in terms of local media or other media. And my colleague knows full well that diversity of information and support for media are fundamental. So I didn't get an answer.
Madam Speaker,
Chair.
Yes, sorry, Madam Speaker. I too would like to offer my sincere condolences to the family of Air Force Officer Captain Jen Casey. Our hearts are with you, and also to the speedy recovery of Captain Richard McDougall. Madam Speaker, we know that elective surgeries across Canada, such as heart valve replacements, heart bypass surgeries, and even cancer tumor removals, were put on hold as we braced for a wave of COVID-19 cases in hospitals. Some provinces are now finally rebooking these elective surgeries, while others are not. We have been sacrificing the health and well-being of many thousands of Canadians who have other equally significant health concerns. And in many cases, these people are dying because their surgeries are not attainable. In fact, in Health Committee, which I serve on, Madam Speaker, Dr. Paul Dorian, a cardiologist and researcher at the St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, testified saying that these cancellations are costing lives. He said he personally knew of 4 deaths in one hospital just last week due to hospitals prioritizing COVID-19. Now, I do understand that surgery decisions are of provincial jurisdiction. However, Canadians expect the federal government to take a leadership position on these issues, as it is their advice that provinces are relying on for guidance during this pandemic. So, can the Minister of Health tell us how many Canadians have died because their surgery was postponed due to COVID-19 prioritization?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And as the member notes, provinces and territories have the jurisdictional authority over how they deliver healthcare in their own territory or province. And I also want to thank the many hardworking physicians and hospital administrators, and in fact, ministers of health and their ministries for the very difficult decisions that they've made over the last several months to ensure that we can actually deal with the COVID-19 situation. As we saw the rise in cases across Canada, these provinces and territories took appropriate action to ensure that they would have the capacity in their own healthcare facility to deal with surgeries as on an urgent situation and postpone those that were less urgent in order to be prepared for any potential wave. Now, thankfully, the work of Canadians has meant that our healthcare system has managed to get through this first stage intact, and it's only through those hard decisions and, in fact, the patience and the perseverance of Canadians to ensure that we flatten the curve.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
Can I ask this again, though? Do you know of how many Canadians have died because their surgeries were postponed due to the COVID-19 prioritization?
I don't particularly know, but I would ask the member to address the question to the minister, to the chair. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And in fact, it is a complicated question that the member is asking, because it's hard often to count those kinds of things in a way that would give him satisfaction right now. But I can tell you that Statistics Canada is keeping a very close count on the number of deaths across Canada, and we'll have a better sense in the next quarter.
So if you don't know how many people have died because of the postponement, how many elective surgeries were postponed?
Again,
through the speaker.
Well, Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it seems the member needs another reminder that, in fact, healthcare delivery and,
I understand it comes through the provinces.
I want to remind the member for Calgary Confederation that he's to allow the minister to respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad to see that civility still exists even in our virtual realm. It is important to remember that healthcare delivery and, in fact, the collection of statistics that are related to that delivery reside within the jurisdiction of the provinces and territories. Now we know.
Mr. Weber.
I'll take that as I have. No idea how many people died because of postponement. Can the minister tell us how long it will take to address the new backlog of surgeries?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And in fact, it will be different from province to province and from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, depending on the level of load and requirements in those particular areas.
Mr. Weber.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, it's important to remember
Mr. Weber.
Madam Speaker, many of my constituents are not happy with the World Health Organization's early handling of this pandemic. As the minister is well aware, the Health Committee has been stonewalled by the World Health Organization in our attempt to get Canadian Dr. Bruce Aylward to testify. We know the minister and her government supports the World Health Organization with Canadian taxpayer money. So, Madam Speaker, does the minister believe that the World Health Organization should allow Dr. Aylward to testify?
There's not much time left. I'll allow the minister just to respond. Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. We fully support the independent nature of House of Commons committees.
What specific actions?
The honourable member for Flamborough-Glanbrook, Mr. Sweet.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I just want to join my colleagues in sending our condolences and prayers to Captain Casey's family, as well as our prayers for speedy recovery for Captain McDougall. And of course, our hearts are out to the whole Royal Canadian Air Force. Madam Speaker, last week, the Finance Committee heard from the Auditor General that his office had been severely constrained. And today, the newly nominated AG stated the same at committee. What measures are being taken to correct this lack of accountability and transparency?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister, is it on mute? Anybody from the government?
Madam Speaker, I'm happy to take that question. I want to say that we continue to be supportive of the Auditor General. We're of course pleased to have a new Auditor General being appointed, and we will look forward to working with her to make sure that her good work can continue.
Thank you. I just remind the Minister of Finance, if he has a headset, it would be a lot easier for the interpreters. Thank you. The honourable member, Mr. Sweet.
Madam Chair, 4 audits have been delayed to 2021 and 6 others are incomplete this at the time when we have unprecedented federal spending, rocketing deficits and debt. Canadians want a commitment to accountability now. How will the minister demonstrate this?
The honourable minister.
Madam Speaker, if the Auditor General identifies the need for additional resources, we will work with the Office of the Auditor General to ensure that the office has the resources to continue fulfilling its mandate efficiently and effectively. Our government worked with the Auditor General to increase funding levels in 2018-19, and they were able to add the equivalent of 38 new full-time staff to their team.
Honourable member from Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Office of the Auditor General has already requested $10.8 million in funding to meet the new demand that this government has placed upon them. And the newly appointed Auditor General today at committee was clear that that previous funding was all ate up in IT improvements from very dated equipment. This is all now that what they're asking for is 6/1000ths of a percentage point of the federal COVID-19 program spending. When will the government give Canadian taxpayers the assurance that the Auditor General's office will be properly funded?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, as I mentioned, Our government is fully committed to supporting the important and ongoing work of the Auditor General, who is an independent officer of Parliament, and we will work with his office or with the Auditor General's office to ensure that the office has the resources that they need to fulfill the very important mandate they have on behalf of Canadians.
Mr. Sweet.
Madam Speaker, no Auditor General has ever come to Parliament complaining of a lack of funding until now. And today, the newly nominated AG was saying the same thing, that they require more sustainable, predictable funding. When will that be available? It's very clear what they need. When will the minister deliver it?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, I appreciate the concern that the member from the Conservative Party has, but he should recall that major cuts to the Auditor General's office happened during the term where the Conservatives were in government, and our government committed to restoring that funding and in fact increased funding levels, and we continue to be respectful of the Auditor General.
Madam Speaker, apparently the minister did not hear me. No Auditor General has ever come to Parliament complaining of lack of funding. Any past reduction was done with the consultation and agreement from the Auditor General's office. So while healthcare workers, grocery store workers, and prison guards and more have been hard at work, the government refuses to allow the official opposition to bring back to the chamber a reduced number of members to demonstrate the commitment to accountability. Now, the Auditor General's office is crippled as well. Does the minister not agree that this is looking more and more like an untenable double standard?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, Madam Speaker, as my colleague says, the role of Parliament and parliamentarians is fundamental for the government. So is respecting the advices and rules from Health Canada. So we're trying to look for a balance, and this is what we have through today. And can you hear me? Okay, through events like today or physically in the House like tomorrow.
There's 17 seconds left. Mr. Sweet, very quick one.
Madam Speaker, our farmers are facing unprecedented challenges. The minister is concerned that this will impact Canadian food supply.
The Honourable Minister, very quickly.
Madam Speaker, we are lucky in Canada to have a very strong food supply chain, and we are collaborating very well with our trading partners as well as with the farmers all across the country.
We'll now go to Ms. Adwin. Ms. Adwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently spoke with the leadership of the Native Women's Association of Canada, and they do not feel heard within this government. They are frustrated by the red tape of funding applications with colonial criteria that leaves them either without operational or infrastructure funding, depending on the stream. Their disappointment in being left out of critical discussions was also expressed in a letter to the Prime Minister in March. In light of the approaching one-year anniversary of the release of the report on the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and considering the recent spike in Indigenous women experiencing violence due to COVID-19, would the Minister commit to direct, solid core funding for the Native Women's Association of Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, I thank the member for her question and for her ongoing advocacy for not only First Nations but Indigenous women and girls. And I think the member will be pleased to hear that when we signed the accord with the Native Women's Association last February, that we understood their need for stable, predictable funding and increased the core organizational capacity at that time. In that accord, they received $3.1 million in the first year, 2.1 in each of the successive years, to a total of $7.3 million. We also are very grateful that we have received their contribution to the National Action Plan on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls.
Back to Ms. Adwin. Ms. Adwin.
I thank the Minister for that response. And Mr. Speaker, I'm going to switch gears as well. On May 17th, we joined our voices to support the 2S LGBTQIA rights during the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. In a statement on that day, the Prime Minister said that this community continues to face stigma and discrimination for simply being themselves. In 2015, a promise was made to Canadians to put an end to the policy prohibiting men who have intimate relations with other men from donating blood. While it is true that the temporary ban period has been reduced, this shorter ban period has not had a real impact on the ability to give blood with dignity, and the policy in place remains a discriminatory one. Mr. Speaker, can the minister clarify why this discriminatory legislation has not yet been repealed, and when all men, regardless of who they love, will also be allowed to save lives by giving blood?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to our efforts over the years, Canada has one of the safest blood systems in the world, supported by evidence-based policy. And that's why we approved the Canadian Blood Services and Héma-Québec's request to reduce the deferral period for donation to 3 months for men who have had sex with men earlier this year. And this is a significant step towards eliminating the deferral period and moving to a behavior-based model. Thank you.
Ms. Atwin.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair, the Association Canadienne Française de l'Alberta has launched an appeal to save the Saint-Jean campus. This is the only French language post-secondary institution in Alberta. The campus is in a precarious financial situation because of a chronic lack of funding, and it might even have to close its doors. We need to continue supporting the dreams of its students, regardless of which language they choose. Can the minister confirm today that the federal government will assist the Franco-Albertan community, just as it did in the file of the Francophone University of Ontario, in order to save this institution, which is a true cornerstone of Western Canadian francophonie? The Honourable Minister.
Honorable Ministre. Oui,
merci, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank my colleague for this important question. And thank you for being an ally in defending linguistic rights in the country. Of course, both our official languages are important, and we always need to do more to support them. We need to help protect our institutions, which support the vitality of linguistic communities in our communities. I've had a good discussion with the director of the campus, as well as the president of the Alberta Francophonie Association that you mentioned, and we are working closely with them to find durable solutions to this problem. Thank you.
Madame Atwin.
Speaker, my final question will be for the Minister of Finance. When can we expect to see the updated budget?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have to apologize. I was changing from the French to the English and I missed the question in English.
Okay, the Ms. Adwin, maybe you can repeat the question. It was a brief one anyways. Go ahead.
Yes, sure, my pleasure. The Minister of Finance, through you, Mr. Speaker, when can we expect the updated budget?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member for the question. We are trying our best to be very transparent about all the measures we're putting forward, and as the economy becomes more stable, we will endeavor to make sure that we have a fuller understanding for Canadians.
The next question goes to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
The Commercial Rent Assistance Program is supposed to provide the much-needed support to small businesses so that they can survive the pandemic. By only allowing landlords with a mortgage to apply for it, the Liberals show that they are less concerned about supporting small businesses than ensuring big banks get their mortgage payments. Surely, the Liberals know that Bay Street is not the target here. Will the minister eliminate the mortgage requirement and allow small businesses to apply instead of the landlord?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do see that this emergency rent approach will be very helpful for small businesses and for landlords. We have come out and said that we will be providing more information to allow those landlords without mortgages to be part of this program. We are looking forward to providing more details so this can work for Canadian small businesses.
Ms. Kwan.
At the moment, the reality is that not one small business in the Chinatown Parquet in my riding is eligible for the commercial rent subsidy, and they're not alone. Representatives from the Hastings BIA tell me that small business there are also struggling. Even the landlords are saying that they should not be the ones applying for the rent subsidy, and they all want the mortgage requirement eliminated. It is absurd that the Prime Minister will bail out big companies who use tax havens, but he won't help out out these small mom and pop shops? When will the minister realize that small businesses are the economic engines in all of our communities and fix the program so small businesses can get the help they need?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to thank the member for her question. We are very much trying to work to ensure that small businesses are in a strong position. The emergency business account, which we announced this morning, will be expanded to encompass a greater availability for more businesses and is important. There'll be more information on the emergency rent approach, which of course we're trying to work together with the provinces since it is a jurisdiction that's the provincial jurisdiction. But as with all of our programs, we will endeavor to make sure that they are improved as we go along, recognizing the challenges that this emergency is presenting us.
Ms. Kwan.
Time is of the essence, Minister, and repeating the same message box weeks after week will not change a thing. But stopping bailouts to big corporations using tax havens will. In addition to small businesses, municipalities and public entities are also struggling. TransLink had to cut services and laid off 1,500 workers. The PNE, after 110 years, will not survive the pandemic if they can't get some help. That would mean a permanent loss of 125 full-time and 1,600 part-time workers, not to mention a loss of an additional 2,500 summer jobs for young students. Will the minister do what is necessary to save the PNE, or will he just turn a blind eye and let this 110-year-old institution die?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I would like to thank the member opposite for her very important question. Our government is absolutely aware of the essential role municipalities play every day, and particularly of the essential role that they will play as we are all looking towards restarting the economy. As the member opposite suggested, public transit is an essential part of the work municipalities do. At the FMM meeting over the phone last week with the Prime Minister and the First Ministers, the Prime Minister did discuss the need to support municipalities and the need for provinces to really be working with the municipalities and with us to ensure that our municipalities are able to be part of a successful relaunch of the Canadian economy.
Ms. Kwan.
Well, support for them is essential. I hope the government will act. The BC government has an aggressive acquisition strategy to address the homelessness crisis. To start, they purchased the Comfort Inn last week. Did the federal government provide any support to the BC government for this acquisition?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have provided additional money in the amount of $157.5 million to municipalities and community entities across the country to use in a flexible manner to deal with the issue of COVID-19 pandemic and the homeless population.
Ms. Kwan.
The truth is the federal government failed to provide one dime for the purchase of the Comfort Inn. Surely the minister realizes that he cannot carry on business as usual. COVID-19 has exposed how we are failing the most vulnerable. More than ever, we need a national housing acquisition strategy. Will the minister fund a new stimulus package to address the homelessness crisis?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the amounts of money that we have provided to community entities are in addition to the regular funding that we provide on an annual basis, and we trust the community entities to respond in the local circumstances. The member opposite must know that it is the community entities that make the best decisions based on their local circumstances.
Prochaine question ira à Madame Larouche.
Next question, Ms. Larouche. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd also like to send my condolences to the near and dear of Jennifer Casey. Last week, after repeated requests from the Bloc Québécois to help seniors, I even have been to Ottawa 3 times myself since the beginning of the crisis to question ministers. The government has finally announced a form of assistance, a check for $300 and an additional $200 for seniors receiving the guaranteed income supplement. However, there is still a lot of uncertainty about the form this assistance will take. Will the amount be taxable or non-taxable? Will it be included in the old age pension program? Or will it be a refundable tax credit? Can the government confirm this and enlighten us about when the money will arrive? The Honourable Minister.
Clarify any conditions that are not clear. It is a tax-free
payment made to OAS and GIS recipients. So it's a one-time tax-free payment. And this is in addition to a previous payment that was done through the GIS top-up that again went directly into people's accounts for those low and moderate income Canadians, including seniors.
Madame Larouche.
Ms. Larouche. Another area of uncertainty is that the government announced that this assistance would be retroactive. If that's true, does that mean it goes back to the 15th of March? It was announced for a period of 3 months, so if it goes back to the 15th of March, that would bring us to mid-June. What will happen after that? Seniors will still be confined this summer, very probably, and maybe for several months. So should they be concerned? Or will the government reassure them that the assistance will continue, given that the seniors' needs will continue after the middle of June?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. I just want to make it clear, these are one-time payments. First in April, seniors would have received those low and moderate income seniors would have received the GIS top-up in their bank accounts in April. We saw that more was required as the pandemic was extending, so we have now provided another benefit to those on guaranteed income supplement, and also those are on old age security. It's a one-time tax-free payment that will be coming soon. And just to put it in perspective, if you take a guaranteed income supplement couple, and you take the two benefits that the government has provided.
We're going to continue with Ms. Larouche. Chair, does the government not find that adopting temporary measures sends the message that the problem is temporary and that the situation of seniors was therefore acceptable with the current crisis? Why are these temporary measures? And do you intend to make certain measures such as the old age pension permanent, given that seniors' situation before the crisis certainly wasn't acceptable, and it won't be so after either? They're facing rising grocery costs, increased home delivery, higher costs for medicines and rents, etc. So does the government intend to respect their election commitment and increase OAS? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity to clarify any confusion. The government remains committed to implementing the policies in our platform. However, at this time, we are focused on providing support to seniors enduring the COVID-19 public health crisis. We provided financial support to seniors sooner through the GST top-up and the OAS and GIS payments. This provides support for seniors of all ages that is comparable for many and is greater for the most vulnerable. This year, we're investing over twice as much on financial assistance to seniors as we committed to in our platform. That's $3.8 billion compared to the $1.56 billion in our platform. Seniors needed our help, and we've taken action sooner, and we've delivered.
We're going to return to Ms. Larouche. So, in terms of the GIS, Chair, can the Minister recognize that when they've increased it, people will also receive an enhanced payment in 2020?
In 15 seconds or less, please.
Sorry about that. So those that are, what I'm saying is those that are on the GIS already or get a GIS an amount from the government did receive a top up. Those that are on old age security and guaranteed income will be receiving this one-time tax-free payment soon.
We'll now go on to Mr. Seaback. Mr. Seaback.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've received an email from a commercial landlord in my riding of Dufferin-Caledon, and the email goes on to say, commercial rent relief is just a headache for people like me. Why do I have to apply? It's not my problem. The tenant needs to pay. Mr. Speaker, why has this program been designed such that only landlords can apply, and if they refuse to apply, they can still demand the rent from their tenants, their commercial tenants?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member may know, the tenant and landlord relationship is one that has provincial jurisdiction. We decided to move forward in cooperation with the provinces, providing the lion's share of funding for a program that would allow us to provide support to small businesses and also to landlords to get through this time of crisis. We're looking forward to providing more details on this program, recognizing that it needs to be part of our broader approach to providing loans and to providing wage subsidies and emergency response benefits for businesses and for people.
Mr. Seaback.
Well, that doesn't actually answer the question. By putting all of the burden on the landlord or all of the privilege on the landlord, whether they choose to apply for this rent subsidy or not, they are putting small businesses in this country in serious jeopardy. These are small businesses that shut down their businesses and lost all their revenue going on 2 months. And their landlord is saying effectively, we're not applying for this program, pay up. Why won't they change the conditions of the program to allow for tenants to apply directly for the rent? They could covenant or undertake to guarantee that they would use that money to pay the landlord. When landlords are behaving badly, why are we not helping small business tenants?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, we are working through the approach that we have as a federal government tool, which is the mortgage system. Of course, looking to the provinces to be part of this as well. We do know that there's other supports that are important. The emergency business account, particularly important. Over 600,000 $40,000 loans have been applied for and approved. So we'll continue to work with small businesses. We are looking forward to take up by landlords of this emergency rent program, and would encourage that to move forward to support businesses and landlords.
Mr. Seaback.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I am of course encouraging landlords in my riding to apply for this program. That is something that I consider to be part of my duty as a member of Parliament. But there are some who are clearly, based on this email, not going to do it. So my question for the minister is fairly simple. Will you change the program to allow for tenants to apply for rent relief if their landlord refuses to do so? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will always be looking at the programs that we are putting forward in order to make sure that they're working. We've made changes as we've moved along. In this program, we have chosen an approach that we are actually able to get funding through the landlord. That will be the approach on this, but we'll be open to looking at how we can make sure that it works.
Mr. Seaback.
Well, right now I can tell you it's not working. This is not one isolated incident. I receive emails and telephone calls on a daily basis from small businesses who are commercial tenants whose landlords are not applying for this program. So I'm asking the minister, will you provide now some certainty that you will examine this, provide a timeline for when you will examine this, and provide an answer for these tenants so they can have some certainty? Is there a timeline where you will look to change this program? It's been 2 months. They need the help now, not in another 2 months.
I want to remind the honourable members to place their questions through the chair and not directly to the person they're asking. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, I'd like to thank the member. We're all trying to work hard to make sure that we support small businesses. The business account, as I mentioned, that small business loan has been particularly important. We're looking forward to providing more details on this program, which have not yet been fully disclosed, that will, we hope, help landlords and tenants to work together to make it work. Thank you.
Mr. Seaback, with 30 seconds, so a very quick question, please.
Well, I'm asking again, what is the timeline for this commitment to relook at this program so these tenants can have some hope at the end of the tunnel? Getting into more debt is not the answer for them. Is there a timeline that you will look at changing this program so that tenants can apply when landlords refuse to, so their businesses don't go under?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, I do want to thank the member for his question and assure him that we are always looking to support small businesses. We're encouraging landlords to avail themselves of this program and encouraging them to work together with their commercial tenants to provide the relief. Of course, provinces need to step forward as well, and that's why we recognize that we all need to work together to support these small businesses.
And that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank everyone. J'aimerais remercier.
I would like to thank everyone for today. It was very professional and pleasant. So thank you once again, all of you. The committee stands adjourned until Tuesday, May 20th at noon. Thank you.
See you Thursday, Mr. Speaker.